We're continuing this special focus on Parliament today. A number of activities happening there on the floor of the House. But what's controversial now has got to do with the approval of the ministerial nominees. Speaker of Parliament there suspending seating for at least a few minutes. A number of concerns being raised there by the majority side of the House. There's that high suspicion that they may not have the full complement of their numbers, but we'll confirm all of that after the voting process is over. The majority is, however, accusing the NDC side of following party interests as against their parliamentary duties. These are the matters featuring on the floor of the House. As you can see, of course, some caucus meetings underway there just to finalize the voting process. I want to bring in now Samuel Obing, who's the Executive Director for the Parliamentary Network Africa, joining us as we monitor this. Sami, so you can see exactly what's happening there in Parliament. Are you surprised about the developments? And Sami, kindly unmute for us so that we can get the points you're making. Sami, if you can hear me, kindly unmute for us so we can hear the points you're making, Sami. We seem to be having a challenge hearing Sami Obing. We'll try him one more time to see if we can get more from the parliamentary monitoring group. Sami, we're unable to hear you. If you could just turn on your microphone so we can get the points you're making. But what you see on the floor of the House now is the case that the ministerial appointees and their fate hangs in the balance. Obviously, the majority and the minority side sharply divided on matters today. President Akufo-Addo's nominees will have to wait a few more hours to know whether they will make it through. On the floor there, you see Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, of course, having some chit-chats with the colleagues across the aisle. We'll be getting back there to get you the latest on that. But Sami Obing, if you can hear me, let's try one more time. Sami, so you've seen all of this unfold, but let's talk about the parliamentary requirements. What we're seeing now is a secret ballot. So what does the standing order say about this? Yes, Sami, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. No, I think that matters relating to secret.
Okay. Well, some challenges there again, but of course you're seeing live pictures from Parliament, and of course Parliament is considering a number of matters, including the appointment of the ministers. Of course, they would first of all need that approval from Parliament, which we're keeping our eyes on. There's another crucial matter about the approval of the those who've been nominated to the Supreme Court as well. That is also on the table. That's also on the table, and we're equally waiting to see if, of course, the minority side will make some decision on that. We'll definitely be capturing all of this to you. Sami, let's try one more time. Sami, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Blessed.
Okay.
I hope you can hear me.
Yes,
now.
I can hear you now. So just walk us through the process, the requirements, and what it is that the law says about this.
Right. So I'm saying that for many of us as Ghanaians, secret ballot issues are no longer, strange to us because, in this particular 8th Parliament, we've seen quite a number of them, even from the start of the voting of the Speaker. The only significant difference, though, is that usually on the bit about ministers, we would expect that the approval of a committee's report on appointment of ministers would be by consensus, but the consensus was not reached. And once consensus has not been reached, then what is going to happen is that we would have them having to take the secret ballots. Now, usually what's going to happen in Parliament is that there will be booths, they will be mentioned one after the other, they will go to the booths, they will cast their votes. And it's a simple process, after which the clerks would announce their results. The clerk will announce the results of the vote. So it's quite, baffles me why this is going on. But certainly with all that is going on the floor of the House, you can be certain, especially with the shenanigans that have happened in this 8th Parliament, that it is really an issue of numbers.
Does it look like, and this is your personal opinion on this, that one of the sides does not have that full complement of the numbers? Is that what you suspect?
Well, the numbers will show us at the end of the votes, but I also think that beyond just maybe one side not having all of its members, there may also be an issue of perhaps mistrust among caucuses. One caucus not being sure whether all of its members are actually going to cast a vote in favor of the position that they want to hold on this particular subject matter. So we can only wait and see. We just hope that some of these drama will be limited so far as our parliament is concerned. But hey, it's part of the parliamentary work, and so we'll look at what the eventual results will be. We hope that by the time they come back from the short break, this matter would have been resolved.
And clarify this for us. What does the law actually say in terms of the parliamentary procedures and the orders about the secret and the whip system? Because there's a bit of a conflict here. Some MPs raising the point that MPs on the minority side have been directed to, for instance, show their ballots to their colleagues before they go ahead to do the casting of the ballots itself. Is that allowed by the whip system or by the parliamentary system in general?
Well, secret ballots are supposed to be secret ballots ordinarily, where if you are to vote, you are to get into the booth, vote, your conscience, vote as a representative of your people, and then you get out of the booth. Eventually, the final result gets counted. We know that sometimes these parliamentary folks like to deploy, strategies to make sure that people are whipped in line. But all of this comes into play when people cannot be confident about, who is going to vote where. Remember that this is not the very first time that we are voting. Parliament is actually voting on ministerial nominees. We've had an instance where they've done the same, especially in this same 8th Parliament, when they've done a secret voting for ministerial nominees. And so you wonder whether, this is a matter that should divide the House this time around, especially when they know how these processes go. So certainly it goes to confirm the fact that, there is more to it than meets the eye.
We're seeing pictures now of course, some more MPs engaging and engaging each other from both sides. But what we're also witnessing is that the rank and file of the opposition NDC appear to have stayed all through the parliamentary sitting starting yesterday. The chairperson himself, Johnson Asido Nketia, present in Parliament. He's there today, flanked by the Greater Accra Regional Chair of the NDC and some more individuals and party folks who are joining him. How much of a pressure will this weigh on the minority leadership in Parliament?
Of course, Parliament is sitting in public. Once Parliament is sitting in public, the public gallery is open to everybody. Of course, when party folks come to sit in like this, then you know that there's a big ticket issue that is supposed to come to play. We all know, it's not secret, that the NDC party has actually issued out specific directives to their members of Parliament on the way to go so far as this vote is concerned. And so, and they know, as experienced as they are, party chairman, party general secretary, being former members of Parliament, we certainly know that they know that when these things are going on, there may be instances where you just need to rally your people around and have some quick conversations. These quick conversations, if you have monitored Parliament for a while, you will know that sometimes it becomes difficult to take them on phone. You want to take advantage of, quick rallying around the corridors of Parliament, quick chit-chats and all of that to have these conversations. So I'm suspecting that these party folks, and I would be surprised if the party folks are only from the NDC side. I expect that perhaps we'd also have the NPP party folks and some of the big wigs in there with the hope that, if there is a stalemate and there has to be a conversation, it wouldn't have to be a telephone conversation or a telephone call to somebody, but whoever needs to be called is right there and they can be able to have the conversation. And mind you, these are processes that happens quite a lot in even far advanced parliaments.
I would explain the concern about the sitting arrangements, for instance, which was raised by the majority leadership, and how, of course, there should be cross-usage of the ballot boxes. We'll talk about the implications of that. But tell us more about this. Could we have avoided this stage of having plenary approve the ministerial nominees?
Yes, the standing orders of Parliament is very clear on the appointment committees and its work. The standing order says that the appointment committee, after doing its work, would effectively present its report to the plenary. And in presenting its report, ordinarily the expectation is that there will be a consensus report which says that after vetting nominee A, B, and C, we have built a consensus that nominee A, B, and C should be approved. Where there is no consensus, then the responsibility, shifts from the committee proposing a consensus to the plenary to be able to actually cast a vote on the subject matter. And this is where we are on this particular issue. And remember, again, that this is not the very first time that Parliament is actually voting on ministerial nominees. Even this 8th Parliament. I think that the ministers serving in President Akufo-Addo's second term, there's been a number of them whose fate had to be determined through, ballots such as this.
Well, some experts are divided about what this means for parliamentary oversight, with some saying that the extreme divides and sharp division that we're seeing in Parliament is not helpful to what's happening. Others also believe that given this stance by the opposition, parliamentary supervision and the nature, the long-held perception that this is a rubber stamp house is beginning to change. Are you buying into that, looking at how rigorous even the vetting process was for these nominations?
Any parliament that stampedes the work of the executive obviously would have reason to be worried about that kind of parliament. But however, it is also not to say that, in trying to avoid stampeding parliament, stampeding the work of the executive, everything that the executive brings must go through hook, line, and sinker. Parliament has a sacred responsibility to be scrutinous, to oversee the executive branch, and to be able to ensure that things are going the right way for and on behalf of the good people of Ghana. Now, remember that one stance that I have personally held, and I have expressed it a few times or a number of times on your show or on your platform, is that I find it worrisome when we have members of parliament whose role is to approve or disapprove some of these nominations come back to us as Ghanaians and on radio and on television are complaining just like we all are complaining about bloated numbers of government or bloated numbers at the Supreme Court and what have you. They are the approving authority, for God's sake. So if they think that there is something that needs to be done about the number and they are appealing to the president who is the appointer and nothing much is happening with it, nothing stops Parliament from using its authority as the approving body to disapprove people. Of course, it must be based on competence. It must be based on what the Constitution says about who can be a minister and what have you. But nothing also stops Parliament in sending a signal to the government about the need for certain changes to be made. In many, many other parliaments, developed parliaments that have walked through this whole consensus building process, parliament executive relationship process over the years, you will find that when such heated situations are happening on the precincts of parliament, sometimes you would have even the executive, moving over to parliament, having conversations. We've seen many, many times where in the United States, we've had, the executive branch, moving to Congress, to have conversations, discussions before very crucial votes, so that some amicable solutions can be reached, agreements can be reached on some of these matters. So for me, I would be surprised or disappointed if our elected representatives come back to us and say that, the numbers are bloated, and yet they do nothing when the opportunity comes for them to be able to show that, send a signal, these numbers must be checked.
Quite a long day we have, Sami. Just hold on for us in your shots now. Live pictures from Parliament itself. The Speaker's seat is vacant, but it's quite a tiring job for the marshals, I can imagine, given what has happened in previous times. I mean, you recall that infamous, or perhaps that moment that Ghanaians will want to, well, not necessarily relive, but really for comic reasons, when we saw that ballot paper snatched on the eve when the speaker was being elected. I guess that's why the marshals have increased on the lighter side, isn't it?
well, I mean, the marshal department have always have had quite a number.
Yeah, but I see more numbers
yes,
now.
I
see more numbers now.
It was worrisome, the scenes, and I think that we need to start seeing evidence that security on the floor of Parliament is being taken seriously.
Any moment from now, we're expecting the minority leader, Dr. Kaysola Tuforson, to address the press. But let's talk about the Speaker himself, Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin. Quite a stern position is taking to be the middleman here. Do you see that independent posture of the Speaker throughout the sittings?
Well, the Speaker himself has said that if the expectation is that he will be a neutral speaker, that expectation will be wrong. But if the expectation is that he will be an impartial speaker, it is an expectation that he can live with, because what he promises is impartiality and not neutrality, because everybody knows his stance so far as party affiliation is concerned. I think in crucial stages such as this, the critical role of the speaker is the hallowed responsibility of interpreting the standing orders, interpreting the rules of the House, and ensuring that the rules of the House are followed, to the latter. And that is what I'll actually expect. I've seen that in many times the Speaker has actually given some very interesting concessions, for the leadership of, either side to be able to do one thing or the other, just to be able to try and build consensus, including suspending sittings a number of times, just so that they can be able to have backroom conversations and all of that. I expect that his experience as a speaker who has been in that particular House since its inception in this fourth Republican dispensation would come to bear in calming down nerves, calming down tempers, and being fair so that certain things can take place. And Parliament and parliamentarians must recognize that, unlike the past, where we can only hear what's happening on the floor of Parliament in evening news, on channels like yours and what have you. Now, people can watch them live on channels like yours. People can watch them live on the Facebook platform, of Parliament itself and what have you. And so we can see it when our members of Parliament are misbehaving. We can see it when our members of Parliament are not, comporting themselves and are putting up acts that makes us cringe. And so they must be minded about these things, especially also as they are expected to go to the polls at their party primaries level and then eventually to the national polls to be elected. Some of these things can have a very major effect on the high attrition rate in Parliament that many of us have been speaking about, which is a canker to effective parliamentary development.
Yeah, and we still have some MPs missing on the floor of the House. Is it surprising to you that, given these crucial matters that are being decided, you were still not able to find some of the MPs present to decide and to make the voice of their constituents count?
Well, I personally await the votes and proceedings of today's sitting to be able to identify exactly the members of Parliament who are absent from the floor of Parliament. But yes, it is expected that every whip worth its or her salt, every parliamentary caucus worth its salt, in critical times like this will be able to marshal their numbers. But it is important for us not to deceive ourselves that all is well in this Parliament, even for both caucuses. We know that the majority caucus is struggling very much to be able to have their numbers intact. We know the Sarajua Safo factor. We know the concerns about some members of Parliament who are able to make it because of one or two reasons. But I mean, these are things that are happening also on the minority side.
Okay.
So numbers continue to play a very big part in whatever goes on.
Sami, you just stand by for us. Quite a long day. We have the minority leader, Dr. Kaysola Tuforson, addressing the press. Let's listen.
Unfortunately, the MPP seems panicking. They are afraid of their own shadows, and they are trying to run away from the vote. We insist on secret balloting, and we will vote accordingly. We are optimistic because we strongly believe the NDC Minority Caucus will not betray the stance of the party and the stance that the people of Ghana have come together to ask us to actually implement. So we are urging our colleagues on the majority side to come to the chamber now so that we can start the voting. We want the voting today and not any other day. It should be done today, Friday, 24th of March 2023, and not any other day. We want to move on, and I believe that the people of Ghana will get the decision that is required. We stand with the people of Ghana, and I believe the people of Ghana stand with us. Thank you very much. We are ready. We are ready. We are ready with all the 136 NDC members of Parliament, and we'll do just that. I can only tell you that we are ready to take the vote now. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, so what we see there, very brief statement coming through from Dr. Kaisel Atofo, who's the minority leader. And Sami, there you have it, that assurance and stand warning by the minority this time around, interestingly, to the majority side. They want to have the votes now. What do you believe may be accounting for this level of confidence? Unusual one, of course, on the side of the minority.
Blessed, you know, I've always maintained that in Parliament, strategy is as important as your argument or your ability to debate. Recall that just last night, the minority were insisting that the votes should not be taken last night. They cited many reasons, including the fact that the House has sat for so many hours and members of Parliament who are also Muslims, you know, needed to break their fast and what have you. And of course, impress on the speaker to only take the debate so that the decision can be taken today. Today, they are all, you know, pumped up, and the side, which is the majority side, that wanted the votes taken last night, is now also, you know, trying to play a game. Certainly, whenever this happens, and if you monitor and follow Parliament, you know that something is amiss. It is either some don't have the numbers, it is either somebody does not trust the numbers that even they have, if they have all of the numbers, you know, and remember that the results of a vote like this could have a telling effect on even the very core structures of political parties. Parties are now voting even flag bearers. You know, these things can have effect on who becomes a flag bearer, who is deemed to have, you know, a better grasp of the minority parliamentary caucus and what have you. All of these dynamics plays out, and so you certainly know that leadership of caucuses will be particular in playing their tactics right in crucial times like these.
We'll be crossing over to get some live pictures from Parliament shortly, but you're hearing the voice of the Executive Director for the Parliamentary Network Africa, Sami Obingo, is helping us analyze all that's unfolding on the floor of the House now. Speaker of Parliament taking some 15 minutes break just to allow for the rearrangements and necessary procedures that will allow for this voting. Secret ballots, we're told, to decide the fate of the ministerial appointees. We see Katie Hammond in white for today appearing in the House. Sami, it looks like he's confident that he'll make it through.
Blessed, would you not be in white for your approval day? Would you not?
Well, we all wish him the best, but now the minority says it's not about friendship. It's got to do with the principle. Do you feel that the principle of the minority side is grounded? Many say that, well, all of this is coming through from the party headquarters, a reason for which all that's been done now is done under the consideration of the NDC's concerns.
Well, I wish that this principle stance had come earlier. I personally wish that this principle stance would have been exerted at a time when the numbers kept going up and up and the country was being landed in a ditch. Yeah. I certainly wish that this principle stance would have come much earlier. But like they say, better late than never. And, you know, we've seen many instances also of this current minority in this 8th parliament, sometimes taking some very principled stance, and then at the very 11th hour, people get disappointed. And so we look to see what the eventual result will be.
Right. And now to the issue that the minority leader has just spoken about, the fact that the votes must be taken today. What are the provisions within the law? What happens if the secret ballot is not taken today?
Oh, well, but the decision on when the vote gets taken is in the hands of the speaker, and the speaker has actually ruled that the vote gets taken today. In fact, the processes had almost begun because at the time that it's truncated, they were just about mentioning the names of members of parliament to be able to take the seats, to be able to get to the polling booth to cast their ballots. And so that decision is in the hands of the speaker. Remember that, of course, for the majority, just like it happened on the 9th of 6th January eating into the early hours of 7th January 2021, they are the ones who do not have the luxury of time because they are governing. Parliament is expected to adjourn, I understand, sometime next week. Ministers needs to be approved to start work, and so they don't have the luxury of time. And should this be postponed from today to any other day, of course, if it gets postponed from today, the next possible day will be Tuesday, because the House ordinarily do not sit on a Monday unless for special consideration purposes. And so all of these dynamics come to play. But the buck stops with the Right Honorable Speaker, who is the moderator, who is the interpreter of rules. He's not supposed to participate in the debate. He's not supposed to be seen on one side or be seen actively involved in what's going on, but he's supposed to serve as the umpire who ensures that fairness, adherence to the rules in Parliament are all, taken into consideration.
So we're still awaiting that break to be over, and then we'll get the outcome of that result. But Samir, let's talk also about the ballot itself. What happens? Is there a guarantee that the whip system will not be able to track and possibly victimize, if I could use those words, the MPs that may vote against their own will or decision?
You see, I keep coming back to the fact that this is not the first time we are having secret ballots, to take a decision in Parliament. And that's why it baffles me that members of Parliament are trying to find ways to change the rules. In these secret ballots, I'm sure that you, Blessed, as a journalist who have covered this beat, I'm sure that even my little daughter here, who occasionally I would watch parliamentary proceedings with her on such major days when she's around, we all know where ballot booths get positioned. When these secret ballots are happening, we can say it without even opening our eyes, because we've seen a couple of them during the tenure of this 8th Parliament. And that's the more reason why when some of these things take place, it becomes funny, because in the face of access to parliamentary sitting, access to parliamentary information that Ghanaians are enjoying now through live, broadcast of sittings of Parliament and what have you, some, skirmishes, will usually not wash with the people of Ghana. But like I said, Parliament, your strategy is as good. I mean, your ability to debate and to be able to make your point on the floor is as good as the strategy that you deploy to ensure that eventually, you get your way, especially in very critical moments like these.
Is this looking more like a hang Parliament to you now?
Well, I have always insisted that we have a hang Parliament, and we know people who have always, not agreed or accepted that what we have is a hang Parliament. But certainly, this 8th Parliament is a marked difference from the 7 previous parliaments we've had.
And on that score, what's your outlook, even for how what's happening in Parliament now is likely to inform voter decision going into the next elections in 2024. You feel that there'll be more demands on the part of the MPs?
Well, I think that eventually we will get to recognize that apparently more can be done by Parliament. Apparently more can be achieved by Parliament. And that unfortunately in the past we're being shortchanged a lot. The energy wells situation that has just recently come up, and the insistence of some parts of Parliament on that contractual arrangement, and government committing state resources and the blocking of same, and the results that we are seeing today, issues around e-levy and the fact that the rates could have, the rate eventually came down, and all of these examples are showing us that Parliament, when it wants to, when it's effectively constituted, can be able to play that oversight role, which is part of the three main functions that Parliament plays: oversight, representation of the people, and of course the lawmaking function. And because of that, I think that for well-meaning Ghanaians, these will play out on our minds when we go to the polls, in 2023. Obviously, nobody expected the kinds of numbers that we have in this current Parliament. In fact, I don't think that anybody can convince me that there is a particular way or strategy that can be adopted to ensure that we have similar numbers or similar systems going into the future, simply because you would not always have 137 members of Parliament on either side, with 20 of them on either side being women and 117 of them on either side being men, with just a single, independent member of Parliament being the separating factor and what have you. But what this would also show is that our people will now be minded to say that, look, we would want to keep members of Parliament who are doing the bidding of us, the people who have sent them into Parliament, so that they will stay in Parliament more. And those who are not doing our bidding would want to withdraw them. And so now, I think that it will be more about individual members of Parliament and their faith, and how they are able to show to their constituents that for the 4 years that you gave me the mandate, I went out there and I represented you, and I represented you good, rather than people getting to win. Of course, there are some constituencies that people would simply win just because they belong to a particular political party, and that particular political party usually will win in a particular constituency after they have won the primaries. But even with those examples, you need to go through the hurdle of the primaries, and so now individual members of Parliament can take their fate and destinies into their own hands, can show that they are worth their salt, can show that Parliament they can do a good representation of their people in Parliament. And we are seeing many examples of people that their constituents and even their party folks think that they represented them well in Parliament, for which reason, even at the level of party primaries, are going unopposed. These are going to be instances that we are going to be seeing. But yes, these are also examples or signs to tell us that our parliamentary democracy is evolving. Remember that this is the 8th Parliament in this Fourth Republic. Remember also that in the very first Parliament, we did not even have a credible opposition in Parliament because the NPP boycotted the 1992 elections. Then came a second Parliament where we had both the NPP and the NDC in Parliament, but with relatively fewer numbers on the part of the NPP. But then you had the boisterous, towering figures in the persons of President Akufo-Addo, then Member of Parliament, in the persons of J.H. Mensah, now battling against, members of Parliament from the NDC side who are seeing the first Parliament and they were in there still, the J.H. Also Champons and co. Now, then of course it comes to the era of the third and fourth Parliament, where now the coins had flipped. The NPP had a majority, the NDC had minority, but the numbers were not, equally balanced for you to be able to exert some of these things. These were times when parliamentary democracy was being developed, our systems were being developed, things were being put properly in place, where nursing the kind of parliamentary system that we had. Of course, we saw a lot of rubber stamp situations during these periods. But now we have been able to come to a point where now we don't have 164 as against 160
9 as against 131 or so, which now give, or 109 161 situation, which gives one particular party a big superiority over the other, for which reason minority will always have your say, but majority will have its way all the time. Now everybody will have their say. Now everybody can have their way if they want to have their way. And that is why now accountability, when it comes to parliamentary accountability, will not, or governance accountability, will not only be on the governing party who is handling the executive branch, but also on the minority in parliament, because they have the numbers to be able to insist that certain things must not be done in certain ways. And they must be able to use that power to ensure that the people of Ghana are served better.
And there's a lot more that will be happening. We see that, of course, the place is being readied. I mean, the floor of the House is being readied for that crucial ballot to take place. For now, the crucial decision is on the ministerial nominees. But I'm just wondering, I mean, will this mean that the next round, even on the appointment of the judges, will still go through the same procedure?
Yes, so they are agreed in principle that there are two votes that are supposed to be taken. Earlier on, if you follow the proceedings, the majority side was arguing that both votes should be taken at the same time, except that when you go to the booth, you would be given two ballot papers, so to speak, and then you take a decision on the ministerial bit, and then eventually you take another decision also on the judge's bit, but you don't go there twice, so you go there just once to save time. The minority insisted that no, they were not going to allow that. These are two separate motions, these are two separate reports from the appointments committee, and that each one of them must stand on its own merits. The speaker, when called upon to rule on the matter, agreed with the minority and said that, well, the first motion on the ministers was taken yesterday, the debate happened yesterday, it's a separate matter from the judges, which happened today, and for which reason the first one will go on, the ministerial one will go on. When they finish, they will now also call each one of them again to vote on. In fact, he was actually going to declare the results for the ministerial one. When he's done with that, they will now call for the judges, and he will declare the results of that as well. So certainly, knowing that all 274 members of parliament would actually be called one after the other on two occasions, we are in for a long day.
Just before I let you go off briefly, we're seeing that all is getting set now, but still some members of the majority side not happy about the procedures. You see the live pictures on the screens right now. Ibrahim Mutala Mohammed and also Suhini there on the floor of the House, raising some concerns about the positioning of the ballot. It's not turning out to be something that we wished for. Ahmed Ibrahim, the minority, deputy minority whip, also coming through, pleading with his colleagues to allow the arrangements to be as it is. The former mayor of Accra himself, Mr. Van der Poy, also there. And we're not too clear of what the minority's concerns are. But we see that gesture from Ahmed Ibrahim saying, leave all of this to me, I'll handle them. Sami, I guess that's what you also see through the gestures.
Well, yes, but I also see the Deputy Clerk of Parliament in blue, Mr. Huma Jetro, also making some gestures. Of course, now it has shifted more to the majority side, where you're seeing the Deputy Majority Whip, Lydia Al-Hassan. I don't know who is facing us with his back. It looks like Honorable Suhini. But yes, there is certainly disagreement on some positioning issues where we do not know what it is. But you see, Blessed, with some of these things also that goes on in Parliament, I dare say that some of them are also self-inflicted. And it's important that we speak truth to power, to these are parliamentarians, to the Right Honorable Speaker, to the parliamentary institution on some of the things that they are not doing right. 6th and 7th January 2021 happened. A lot of mess happened. We saw how members of parliament misconducted themselves. We saw ballot snatching. We saw disrupted elections. We saw the conduct of, of parliamentary staffers. We saw the conduct of strangers on the floor of Parliament and what have you. Parliament decided that they would interrogate this and come up with ways around it. 2 years and months down the line, we've heard absolutely nothing from Parliament, perhaps simply because it is an issue that has gotten to do with their own. And so once it has gotten to do with their own, they certainly would not want to crack the whip. And they think that we are forgotten. And this is the time that, influential platforms like yours, civil society organizations like mine, well-meaning Ghanaians like those many hundreds and thousands of people watching your platform will now have to come up and say that, Right Honorable Speaker Barbien, this is not what you promised us. When you came as Speaker, you said that what went on that early morning of 7 January was an eyesore and that it will be investigated. At some point, we were told that the leadership had been asked to investigate it and come to us on the matter. Till date, nobody has said anything to the good people of Ghana. When you don't crack the whip, anytime you will see these things happen. And so what happened? Less than a year down the line, during the budget period of 2021, even worse things happened on the floor of Parliament. And we saw how they misconducted themselves and misbehaved on the floor of Parliament as, people who are expected to carry a title that, makes them honorable. These things have also gone unchecked, as if nothing was done untold. These 8th Parliament risk many more of such things when members of Parliament and the actors in the place get to recognize or feel that nothing happens when I show such boisterous, attitudes, such indisciplined attitudes on the floor of Parliament, on national television, in the full glare of the Ghanaian people. Nothing is going to happen to me. And so they would be motivated to do more and more of these. Right. And that's one of the things that must be checked.
And it's set to be a long day. Sammy will reconnect with you after this voting process. I'm so grateful for your time here on the JoyNews channel. For those of you who are watching us, you just heard from the Executive Director for the Parliamentary Network Africa, monitoring what's happening in Parliament right now. As you can see on your screens, all is being readied for that crucial secret ballot on the ministerial appointees. But there's a lot more happening and set to unfold beyond the approval of the judges of the Supreme Court as well. There are key revenue measures that needs to be considered. Labram Musa is the Executive Director for the Vision for Alternative Development, and Geoffrey Okanse is the Executive Director, Revenue Mobilization Africa. They're joining us also on this conversation. Labram, let me start off with you. Quite a lot happening in Parliament today, but you are much more concerned also about the revenue measures. Why is that of concern to you?
Yes, thank you very much for having us. Indeed, let me say that I'm not a happy person,
right?
Because the whole focus about the bill in Parliament currently is geared towards revenue mobilization, But indeed, it goes beyond that.
Right.
Our focus, as we speak here today, is on the Excise Duty Amendment Bill 2022, currently before Parliament.
Yes.
And when you look at the bill very well, it looks at it's more like a health promotional bill. But all this while, as I mentioned earlier, the focus has been on revenue mobilization. But we are looking at the public health, perspective of that particular bill.
And what's your utmost concern on that?
Well, so our concern with that is that you see, there's a lot of consequences or adverse effects of these health-harming commodities, tobacco, alcohol, unhealthy commodities like sugar-sweetened beverages. And and over the years, the public health community, WHO, UNDP, and even including Ghana, we have advocated, and there are positive, consequences with respect to taxing, such commodity. Just so you see, we are able to reduce the untold, health consequences that currently before the country and even global at the global level. You and I know very well that non-communicable disease is on the rise, and no country is able to contain, such disease conditions. And these disease conditions are basically from these commodities I've mentioned. There have been major risk factors for non-communicable diseases that we are currently, struggling with. Our healthcare system cannot even cope with, these diseases, the cancers, the cardiovascular diseases, the heart diseases, the hypertension, the strokes.
Right.
All of these are coming from these, these commodities. We are not saying that it should be banned, but currently, as I speak to you, the prices of these commodities are very, very, very cheap in the market, and very accessible.
Right.
So it's not like everybody can just accommodate and buy. So we are saying that the government should put some percentage of taxes on this. These taxes, we call them health promotional taxes.
Right.
So the call for us is, the industries are speaking. I mean, the industries that are promoting this commodity are speaking of the fact that government should suspend, this bill.
Right.
What we are saying that for us, we are coming from a public health perspective, and the fact that we needed to ensure that the extent to which people are exposed to these products are one too many, and that government should up the price.
All right. We'll talk about what the alternative should be. But Geoffrey, we're not in normal times. Parliament would have to consider these 3 key revenue measures just to help us sail through with the IMF conditionalities. So why not back that process in Parliament?
Well, exactly. So from the revenue angle, that is why we came together to work together, because it has 3-faceted approach to it. Because you look at the health hazards, like the NCDs, like he's talked about, these are not curable diseases. Remember during COVID, when the president, every time president spoke, he said persons with underlying diseases. And these sweeteners are the ones that causes these underlying diseases. And so majority of the persons who actually we lost were these persons who were within that bracket. Now, when you go to the economic aspects of it, labor is affected, because the argument of industries that they are creating jobs. Ironically, these same persons who've gotten their jobs consume this product, and even their dependents, children, as very, very young children. Now you go to the sick bays, you see children as young as 12, 14, 15, having stroke and other non-communicable diseases. So it actually has something on the labor force, and even when it affects the worker, and unfortunately you lose the worker, as in death comes in, that's the highest point. The dependence of that worker becomes exposed to the crisis we are talking about. So at the end of the day, you go to the health budget of a country. You need, NCDs are very expensive to manage. So it's even not covered under the National Health Insurance budget. Okay, so apparently you have this huge budget which is hanging on your health allocation, which you are not able to actually pay for. So you are getting a space here to charge automatically by the World Bank and all global bodies like WHO. Research has shown that countries that has applied such, we call it the sin taxes, on these sin products like sweetened beverages, tobacco and the rest, alcohol and the rest, the automatic point is when you put the taxes on them, it generates revenue, not for the benefit of it to go and spend largely, but then it actually gives you the space for you to actually manage these diseases which you are having difficulty to manage. The next thing is about accruing these monies also to do one thing which is very important when you are dealing with this such product. You are seeing products on the market. The most dying point of it is that there are even fake of such products
on the market.
On the market. So actually, the sugar-sweetened beverages actually are causing their mess, and there are other ones that you need to monitor.
But even as we speak, the argument is that we've advanced in terms of what it is that Parliament will be doing today. We're expecting that the votes will be taking on these revenue measures. Is it too late to get these inputs on, or you believe that later on that could be done? Labram?
Well, yes, as of yesterday, Labram did a wonderful thing by sending some messages that we tweeted and actually used the social handles to get to the MPs and then the voices around some of those political figures to ensure that they get to understand that our argument has 3-faceted points as to concrete around the health issues, the economic benefits of it, and then actually the last one I was going to talk about is monitoring and regulation. Actually, when you need to monitor the markets and everything and ensure that even these products that are coming, that we have to call them sin products, that are even other ones, I don't know how to call the next degree of it, if even of course the sweetened one, the natural sweetened one on the right from the factory is even killing enough, then the ones that are fake, that you can imagine, and you've seen the videos, I mean, from other countries where people just make some infractions and call it the Coca-Cola or malt you are drinking, but it is not actually the original one. So that means you need to regulate and monitor. Smuggling becomes the open space for other operations. So to do all these three, you need the monies. You need to, and how to get this money is actually to put this excise taxation in place to regulate the consumption.
Okay, Labram, the business community already complaining about the likely impact of this bill. on doing business itself. What's the alternative, since your organization deals with that?
So let me just say that it's wholly on through that taxes on these commodities will affect them. Because research, indeed, we did a lot of research.
You have the figures to back what you're claiming.
Research has been done to show that when you increase prices on these commodities, what it does is that about three things. It's indeed it reduces the extent to which people are exposed to these commodities. So it means you are going to reduce non-communicable diseases. But again, it also increases revenue. But the point is this: no matter even the increase in price, because of the addictive nature of this product, tobacco is addictive, alcohol is addictive. So the addictive nature of it makes it, on through when they said it will reduce,
but these products have been with us since. Why now?
Yeah, the point, it's not about it has been with us now.
Yeah.
The point is that there has been, course, every now and then, every budget year we've been making, this kind of proposal for government to listen. It has taken us for and since 2015.
Okay.
Since government, levy or put taxes on, especially on tobacco products, for about 10, since 2015, 3 years now.
Yeah.
So you can imagine with inflation and so the prices.
That'll be less than 10 actually.
Yeah. So the point is that the industry should also look at they should look at business alone. They should look at the health consequence that it has on individual and the fact that when prices are increased, it doesn't reduce their profit. Rather, government got more revenue. It reduces the healthcare cost of the ministry, and then, like my brother said, you're able to compensate those who will still drink or smoke, because indeed, no matter the level of increment you have on this product, consumption would reduce, but to a very small minimum. But revenue would increase, and government, and then the industry also get their fair share of their commodities. So they should stop talking about the fact that when we increase price on this thing, it will affect their businesses. The point is that there are alternatives. So we are calling them to go for alternatives. We knew that when COVID-19 struck, for instance, we saw what the industry did. They were able to revert or convert to the production of other, products.
Right.
So the point is that there are other, life-saving.
Yeah, but let's try and identify those alternatives. Because if you don't identify the alternatives, obviously you're going to be stifling the business community.
What we are saying that the point is that we should put something in context. We are not talking about banning a commodity.
Yes.
We are talking about, putting a tax on it.
It will still affect business.
Yes, so the point
economically speaking, you know that there will be an adverse impact.
You see, that's why I'm saying that it is not wholly true.
Right.
Because the point is, you see, the industry would have, the chance whether to, to put all the taxes on the individual.
Right.
For us, it's good for us because then the individual will now determine whether to, to drink or to smoke or not to. But if the industry decides to absorb the differences, then that will have an impact on them, and it will affect us because the extent to which people reduce consumption will still not be as. But many countries, Nigeria here, they've imposed taxes on this commodity. Kenya. So the point is that we are not living in an island. Right. We must toe the line of the recommendation given by the WHO, by ECOWAS, and then by well-meaning entities like
Geoffrey, let me bring you in. The minorities is already giving us an indication of where they may stand on these new revenue measures. Are you not deterred that may derail the essence for which you are pushing?
Sardonically, their stance has to do with the argument that the Ghanaian citizen is already overburdened with taxes already. But again, we are actually calling on them to look at it from the angle of the health hazard, and also the fact that the economic argument, there is a counter, very gentle, humble argument from our side to tell them that, yes, the economic side is that you're looking at the fact that you don't want to overburden the budget. But the overburdening of the budget is also as a result of the NCDs we are talking about. The government need excess money to go and manage. So when you take this excise one...
I'm sorry for cutting through, but have you put a cost to it as to what the benefits may be if we go through?
To start with, when you go through the Ministry of Health budgets, they do not separate the cost of NCDs alone to stand. So for you to go and just pick that figure
from
and just support it with your argument. So it's very difficult to get to that one. But there is a global outlook as in persons who die as a result of NCDs. And as you and I know, one life cannot be valued. So that's where we take from the human rights angle. So nobody must die because of profits. So we cannot change human life for profit. So for example, the corporate interest, we cannot put the corporate interest and profit beyond the human rights argument, because the truth is that, and even when you go to the corporate arena, you look at labor, their own labor force is affected by the consumption of these products. I mean, sweeteners are not for only children.
Right.
Even people who drink the whiskeys and everything, they use Coca-Cola or something else. And you see, the danger point of this thing is that it has a long killing point. So your consumption today stretches for about a year or 2 or 5 for you to be affected. And when we are talking about listing them, it affects the whole range. Adults, middle-aged youths, and then children. Yeah. Unfortunately, as we speak, the most pressing argument is that when you take the 3 points, the economic angle, we clearly posit to you that by the global standard, locally, and the continental, there's evidence enough to show that countries that went by taxing these sugar-sweetened beverages have, 1, been able to reduce consumption, 2, they've been able to have been able to get some income, not for profits, again, to 1, manage the diseases. So you see, when we look at the income, we are not looking at income as in we want to generate revenue for the country, as in one point of, for example, doing some business to get money. No, but we are looking at generating the money to go and look at the loophole and the carnage that has been caused by the consumption of these products. So we are going to solve a problem. It's not like a plus, but then a negative which is already drawing us down. If you don't put these taxes on it to reduce consumptions and generate monies, you cannot get the money to, 1, cure the disease or manage them. In fact, the word cure doesn't even come in there because NCDs are not curable. You need to go and manage those diseases. And then finally, like smuggling and then monitoring of this product, you need to be very careful about it. Because the funny thing is, majority of them too that sips through the borders, you need to clamp them down. And, the danger is that the points through which these goods are actually prolified, that's the same place where proliferation of arms and other dangerous substances.
The concern is your concern about public health, and these matters are not economical. So the fact is that, well, you can manage the diseases, you can manage the conditions, but what's happening to the average Ghanaian in terms of the economic challenge that we find ourselves in now?
But you see, there was an argument.
There
was a help I was coming
to have the health conditions with that, and then let the concerns
you spoke about alternatives.
businesses.
I forgot about that side of your point. Excellent one. Right. You remember before COVID, Kasapreko was not producing sanitizers, right? Yeah. But when COVID set in, the alternative appeared that they needed to veer into. So when you go to the write-ups of the WHO, they've made provisions for alternatives that you could do when you are actually slapping down on this tobacco, alcohol, and sweetened beverages. Now, the other thing is, even the beverages you're talking about here, there are very natural juices, that do not have the sweetness, okay? And then, if that is the argument, that the discussion, then, but these are sweetened beverages. These are health killers. So they are dangerous substances. So there's a direct correlation between those substances and then the NCDs. So as we close down, we're only calling on the honorable members that, look, it's a wonderful thing to think about the overburdened Ghanaian when it comes to the cost you are looking at placing on it by the excise taxation. But look at the other side of it, that one NCD patient, you cannot manage that per se, but we have lots and lots of them as a result of consuming these sweetened beverages. So it's our clear on color.
Let's look at the way forward. Labram, we're expecting Parliament to sit on that. We don't know what the outcome will be, but how far have you gone in engaging stakeholders, even beyond Parliament as well?
Indeed, I must say that even prior to, in fact, we were amongst the reason why, the Ministry of Health, have to, propose this to Parliament. In fact, there has been a lot of engagement, even beyond even Ghana. WHO has been involved. UNDP has been involved. You know what I'm talking about when I mention these entities? That means that they have done a lot of research work to know that indeed, when a country is able to impose such taxes on this product, is going to go a long way to support, and indeed, some members of Parliament have been engaged. I know that, for instance, the Health Committee of Parliament, for instance, have been engaged. But the challenge that we have, you see, this is a bill that has to do with taxation, right? So it is within the confine of the, of the Ministry of the Finance Committee of Parliament, but we are engaging, and we have engaged copiously to ensure that at least we are able to get support. The point for us is, I don't think that they have looked, the entire membership of Parliament have looked critically about the the bill we're talking about, the excise duty bill, and the benefit that it's coming to us as a people, as Ghanaians, and even at the global level. So we are pleading with our members of parliament to look at the evidence, look at the public health argument, and not industry argument or industry profits, because that is going to spell doom for the country. Because let me tell you one thing: currently, the rate at which people are dying in Ghana for non-communicable diseases is about 9,400 people. 94,000. Let me put it. 94,400 people are dying for non-communicable diseases each year in this country alone. Globally, about 71 million people are dying. So it means that the issue is not as we are seeing, and there's so much growing, obesity amongst our children as well, overweight among our children, and there's so much complication with respect to,
Okay, so we can save some money, raise some money, whilst we deal with the health conditions. 3-1, correct?
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
We can do all of that.
If we commit to it, that's the 3 we can do. But I think you were also asking what we've done so far. We did with some meetings with government agencies, like you mentioned. We also met the Select Committee on Health.
Right.
We actually also met the CSO community, including the media. But this issue is about protection of the rights of the Ghanaian and our rights to live, our common rights. Then, when you are finished with the local health targets, you look at the WHO conventions that we have signed on to those protocols to protect the Ghanaian.
Okay.
To achieve that, we all must come on board and accept that we need to clamp down, reduce consumption, get some money to manage the diseases that will come as a result of consumption,
and then we get some to
regulate
save the economy.
The market.
Okay. Labram Geoffrey, thank you for joining us. Still on revenue mobilization. There's a lot happening in the Ashanti region as well. Some state institutions moving to clear their indebtedness, and that includes the Electricity Company of Ghana. They've been embarking on a nationwide revenue mobilization exercise in the Ashanti region alone. Some 2.5 million cedis has been retrieved from 2 private companies. There's more in this report.
Out of the 5.7 billion Ghana cedis
Thank
by
you.
electricity consumers nationwide, the Ashanti region accounts for 1.2 billion Ghana cedis, representing 21%. Kasapreko Company Limited had a total of 3.4 million Ghana cedis in unpaid bills. When the ECG debt recovery team visited, the company paid about 2.2 million Ghana cedis with a promise to settle the outstanding 1.2 million in 7 days. Managers at Dako Farms paid 75,000 out of 105,000 Ghana cedis owed ECG with a promise to pay an additional 25,000 Ghana cedis on Friday. Other places visited include the Vodafone Ghana Tanoso office and the Akenton Apiamenka University of Skills Training and Entrepreneurial Development, Amstead, which had settled outstanding bills at the time of the visit. The team was also at the Kropon District Court, which has a 12,000 Ghana cedis bill to settle. Judicial Service officials told the team processes have been initiated to pay the bill in 7 days. Head of ECG in the Ashanti region, Engineer Bwedi Asamoah, is happy at the gains made so far.
Kasapreko owes 3.4 million. Today they paid almost 2.2 million. So they are left with about 1.2, which they are promised that we should come for it within 7 days. So we've done that. And then we went to Dako Farms. Dako Farms, the amount is about 105. They paid 75 today, as of today. And then tomorrow they are going to pay 25. So that will be left with just 5,000 for them to finish. From there we went to University College of Education, and there, incidentally, when they are paid. And then we came to the court here, the district court, and here the amount is not that big, it's just about 12,000. They promised that they are processing it, so we should give them 7 days, and then we should come back and then inspect the receipt. I would say it's very, very fruitful. I've got a report for the day one that we started. In fact, the report we got for the day one, compared with our normal collection, we've gone about 500-600% for this particular exercise. So I would say that it has been very effective. So within the month, I believe that we should be able to substantially reduce our debt base.
According to engineer Wedi Asamoah, the exercise is no respecter of persons, adding every defaulting electricity consumer will be covered.
As we've been saying on air, this exercise doesn't know, there's no category of people who want to disconnect. Every Ghanaian, institutions, individuals, businesses, that OECG, we say we are going for our money. The objective is not about disconnection. The objective is collecting the money. If we come and you are able to give us the money, we'll leave you. In fact, I tell my people we have 3 languages. I have already paid. I'm going to pay now. I am unable to pay. If the answer is the 3rd one, I am unable to pay, then we also go into disconnect. So the objective is not just disconnection, it's a last resort, but we want to collect our money. And there is no mercy for the cripple at all in this particular exercise.
The exercise continues unabated. From Kumasi, for JoyNews, Oimeteria reporting.
We'll keep our eyes on that for you, but we stay in the Ashanti region because Love News checks are revealing that city authorities and managers of the KJTR market ignored system warnings and of course that situation led to the recent inferno that was witnessed at the KJTR market. Erastus Donko has more in this report.
The old central market experienced a series of fire outbreaks. The need for a well-structured edifice capable of withstanding and suppressing fire gave birth to the new KJTR market. A quarter of the $248 million invested in the construction went into the installation of fire protection systems. But on Wednesday, March 15th, part of the new KJTR market was gutted by fire. Traders lost valuable items to the inferno.
$500 million.
But how did the market, built on the idea of controlling fires, fail to control an outbreak? We set out to find answers. The fire defenses of the KJTR market have been designed to allow fire to be fought from within with the installation of smoke detectors to sniff out fires and sprinklers to suppress any outbreak. There are additionally 350 hose reel cabinets fitted with hose reels operated from a central fire pump designed to supply controllable volumes of water to fight fire. In each of these 350 cabinets is installed a fire extinguisher to deal with any eventuality.
So this is a hose reel cabinet. And in here, contractor, the Brazilian company that constructed this building, thought it wise that this will be another port of call to fight fire. Now inside this cabinet, when I close this door, you can see the fire extinguisher sign here, indicating that there was a fire extinguisher fixed here. And there are instructions on how to use the fire extinguisher. Pull the pin, aim at the base, squeeze trigger, sweep. If that is not working for you, they thought it wise. This hose reel, in the event of fire, people are trained to pull the hose rail out like that, and then you have a high pressure hose rail that can go up to a mile, can shoot water and be able to fight the fire.
One of the first respondents to Wednesday's fire was Secretary to the Federation of Kumasi Traders, Reuben Ame. He tells Love News he pulled the hose reel, but there was no water in it.
So I called the chief fire officer to switch on the pressure pump for us, so that we could use that to douse the fire, because that's the last point of resort, which is a fire hose system, which represents the tender machine fire has been using. It took them 15 minutes for the pressure pump to come on. By the time the pressure pump came on, we had the first 3 blasts. and smoke was all over.
An inspection of the operating premises of the Kejetia market during March and April 2022 by the contractor revealed market managers had switched off the fire pumps designed to stay on 24 hours due to a leakage that should have been fixed. Public Relations Officer for the Combined Traders Association, Andrews Kofi, confirms this.
Everything that is possible to quench fire is not working.
The report, which was submitted to the KMA and relevant authorities in 2022 for action, also found that smoke detectors were not working because market managers had failed to remove the manufacturer's cap, sealing the sensors.
Many of the smoke detectors still had their manufacturer's cap fitted on it. You can see one there, the blue cap is still on, and so it is obvious that it will never be able to detect any fire within this enclave. And I have found many of the smoke detectors all along this flat still fitted with their manufacturer's cap. So, in other words, the smoke detectors are sealed, zipped. They are not detecting anything.
Questions remain why fire officers at the market failed to detect this. Batteries for the panel of the detectors were also dead and had not been replaced. Traders had also blocked detection of fire by parking unused items on the metal mesh ceiling. Andrews Kofi again.
There are sprinklers which will automatically generate water to quench whatever fire it is. All these things are not working.
Our news team found that fire extinguishers that could have aided a swift first response to the fire are missing.
So there are about 350 of these hose reel cabinets scattered all across this market. We've checked more than half of them, all of them empty. Where are the fire extinguishers installed by the manufacturer in these cabinets?
We also saw evidence of cooking in the various shops contrary to instructions to restrict all cooking to a designated area. A situation found to have caused many of the fire outbreaks in the old Central Market. The fire service warned of possible fire outbreaks in its letters to city authorities last year. They also refused to renew the fire certificate for the market. The facility has since been operating without insurance, as corroborated by Andrews Kofi.
We pay 51,557.48 pesos as insurance. With insurance, they don't have even fire certificate to go for.
But you're still paying this amount of money.
Where is the money?
The report by contractor submitted to the KMA for action found that guidelines enshrined in the operation and maintenance manual handed over at the conclusion of the project were not carried out. But for the fire-resistant cement board, insulation membranes, and fire-resistant paints coating the steel structures, fire could have spread to many shops.
So if you have invested $248 million in an edifice, wouldn't you go to every mile to ensure that that edifice is protected against any destruction? That is the story of the Kejetia market.
As traders resume trading in the market, many of these system lapses still remain unresolved. A stitch in time saves 9. Reporting for Joy News, Erastus Asaredonko, Kumasi.
And Erastus is still here with us on the story. Erastus, what do we know about the measures being taken by the fire service and city authorities now to correct the lapses within the system? Erastus, if you can hear me, I'm just asking about what measures we know now will be installed, will be in place, just to forestall the recurrence of this disaster. Looks like we're having some challenges hearing from Erastus Asari Donko there. But Erastus, let's try one more time. If you can hear me, I'm just asking about what we know now, if indeed there are any measures that are being taken by city authorities to reverse this trend. What do we know about it?
I can hear you now.
Yes. So I'm just asking, yes.
We had some information. We have been shown documents indicating that there were warnings coming in from the Ghana National Fire Service that fires could break out in the facility. And there were earlier warnings by a contractor, the Brazilian contractor, experts from there, because there was an earlier fire which was contained by the system. At that time, the system was working. And so when they went round to check, they found that there were system lapses. Many of the fire protection systems were not working because managers of the facility, city authorities have not ensured that they were doing routine checks that will enable the fire protection systems to stay on and be able to detect fire and even suppress fire. And so we had to take a letter that was written to the KMA boards and the local government ministry, and then check them one by one at the market facility. Can you imagine that we found that the manufacturer's cap on the smoke detectors were still on? They were not removed. And it tells you that the detectors were not detecting anything because the sensors were capped. And these are some of the lapses. The fire pump, for example, was also put off, but it's supposed to be on 24/7 to ensure that it maintains a certain pressure, so that when you pull the hose reels, you will get high pressure water to be able to fight on your own. So you wouldn't really necessarily need an external intervention to be able to fight the fire. Many of the fire extinguishers, as you saw there, are missing. Well, I am told from different sources that they were removed by the managers of the facility. As to why they removed them, where they are at the moment, we do not know. I think these are questions that authorities and those who are investigating need to go through to ensure that the fire protection system heavily invested in by the contractor will kick in for future eventualities.
And in that report, you're pointing out how, of course, we found out some traces of cooking even in some of the stalls, which is not supposed to be the case. The security agency, speaking up one in connection to that, has investigations on the matter, unraveled some more about whether or not that could be the likely reason for which the inferno happened.
Well, so we do understand that one woman has been picked up. I do not have much information as to where investigation has gone in that direction. We are also picking signals the last time we went there that the fire service has been there looking for other clues. What is interesting to note is that there is a fire station in there. How they did not detect that, for example, the smoke detectors are still sealed with the manufacturer's cap, which of course is a dent, because then they are not detecting anything. The wire mesh that covers the top of the ceiling have been packed with materials, unused materials, preventing the smoke detectors, if they were working, to even detect smoke coming in from the various shops. That one has not also been identified. All these lapses are still very relevant at the moment, and I think that with time, we are expecting that investigations will cover all those system lapses and make sure that a quarter of $248 million invested in fire protection system in the market will be able to kick in and be able to protect that major facility.
And Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia giving the directive for trading activities to resume in the facility. Is business picking up?
Trading activities are resuming in the facility.
Well, so business are...
Erastus? Okay. Well, point well made. I hope that indeed business is picking up. But let's stay in the Ashanti region. The Electricity Company of Ghana retrieving some 2.5 million cedis out of that regional revenue mobilization exercise as part of efforts to feed into what's happening at the national level. Where, of course, the Electricity Company of Ghana, through its management, is scaling up revenue mobilization. The company is indebted to independent power producers by close to $1 million. Ohiming Teria followed that exercise in the Ashanti region. Joins us via Zoom now. Ohiming, what do we know about the two private firms from which the ECG is retrieving some 2.5 million Ghana cedis? Ohiming, if you can hear me, I'm just asking what we know about the two individuals, the companies that from which this 2.5 million cedis is being retrieved.
Yes, I can hear you now. The personnel of the Electricity Company of Ghana were on site to inspect facilities that are owning the company in bills. And just yesterday, at the Casapreco Company Limited, the ECG officials told us that the company owed 3.4 million Ghana cedis in unpaid bills. And the moment, I can count about less than 10 minutes that officials of ECG spent with managers for the company. And then the managers agreed to pay almost 2.2 million Ghana cedis to ECG to offset the bills. So the officials of ECG described this exercise as very fruitful. And after this, the team proceeded to Dako Farms, another private entity at Ekropon in the Ashanti region, where the company, according to ECG officials, were owing 105,000 Ghana cedis. And out of the 105,000 Ghana cedis, managers immediately paid 75,000 Ghana cedis with a promise to pay another 25,000 cedis today. So they will be left with just 5,000 Ghana cedis to pay to ECG in bill arrears. Apart from the Dako Farms, another entity that also came in the picture is the Ekropon District Magistrate Court, which owed 12,000 Ghana cedis in electricity bills. And according to the court managers, let me say judicial service of officials there, they have started the processes to ensure that the bills are paid. So ECG officials, the explanation that they give them 7 days ultimatum for the bill to be paid, and then the receipt shown to ECG officials in order to spare them from being disconnected. So apart from these private entities, there were other residential facilities that were also affected by ECG's revenue mobilization exercise.
Do we know the next phase of this exercise and for how long the ECG will continue this?
The exercise is ongoing. Per the information I picked from the officials of ECG in the region, there are 20 districts, and out of these 20 districts, teams have been sent to all the 20 districts in the Ashanti region to ensure that they knocked at the doors of people, organizations, and individuals who owe ECG in unpaid bills. So they say the exercise will continue till they are done and are satisfied per their arrangement. And for ECG, this is not a one-day wonder. It will be an exercise that will continue as they have been doing. According to the regional manager, regional director of the Electricity Company of Ghana, engineer David Asamoah, he says it's something that they have been doing. They have teams on the ground, but just that this is a special operation, and they want the public to also cooperate with them. And he described the exercise as no respecter of persons, groups, or individuals. So he says, even if you are big and you owe ECG, the moment they come to you, the smaller you become.
Okay then, Ohiming Teria joining us from the Ashanti Regional Capital, Kumasi. We're grateful. Still up and ahead, we're looking at the floods and preparing for them. There's a caution from the National Disaster Management Organization. We'll talk about it in a jiffy. You're watching The Pulse. We'll return shortly. And you're welcome back. Residents of Weija are lamenting the inability of the authorities there to deal with issues relating to perennial flooding, which they say is affecting those who commute on the Accra Cape Coast Highway. My colleague Maxwell Ababa was in the community, and here's what they found out.
Heavy rains on the 23rd May last year rendered about a kilometer of the Kaswa-Accra road completely unmotorable. 2 articulated trucks were stuck in the silt dumped on the road. A driver of one of the trucks, Issa Halidu, said he was forced to spend the night in his car.
We tried to move, we couldn't. We couldn't move. That is why got all the tanks and the tires. Yeah. Everything is sinking. Yeah. So we don't know how to do unless they help us. Okay. They come to our aid. Otherwise, we don't know what to do. Okay. Because I even get some shovel. You see what we are doing. Yeah. We tried, but
it's just some minutes after slight rainfall here in the Weija municipality. What you can see is rainwater gushing down from upstream from the hills here at Weija. It washes down silt onto the main road, reducing a 3-lane stretch to 1, sometimes 2. Many motorists are complaining about the situation. They want authorities to fix the perennial problem.
It rained for only 15 minutes on Wednesday, but some parts of the road is already flooded with a massive gridlock. I've met a resident, Kingsford Kojufusu. He's very angry about the situation.
Very bad. Very bad. And we are facing a lot of problems with traffic. The traffic may see from is a crowd, you guys for say sound give you make them know say we don't suffer for this road top. We don't suffer. Some block factory 2 days here. Anytime it go rain, then to them go drop them water. Now if I bro, we don't suffer. We don't suffer for a year. It be bad. Every rainfall, even small drop, this road go full. I don't know. This road be government road. Make I ask you. Yeah. It be government road. Where government know say this road there here. Yeah. Government people they pass here, then they use the road. Yeah. You know good.
Visibly angry motorists who couldn't step out of their cars to speak to us had something to say to city authorities. Anytime it rains, it gets flooded here. Please get them to fix it for us. A man seated in a commercial vehicle blurted out as the car moved through the flood water on the road. Emmanuel Fori is a taxi driver. He says anytime it rains, drivers are compelled to spend productive hours in traffic on the Weija-Atala stretch. He wants city authorities to fix the challenge.
It causes traffic. Yeah. Whenever it rains excessively, all the high land and the low land at the top, it pushes the soil, so it causes soil erosion. So it makes our work so difficult. I want them to drill a hole, like a gutter, so that the water can flow. To me, it delay my work. Whenever there's excessive traffic, the fuel is always consumed. Yeah, so it makes our work difficult. Yeah.
It's not only motorists who are affected by the flooded road. Some businesses here have lost thousands of Ghana cedis as a result of the situation. Nanama Boy is the manager at the Weija branch of Atala Limited.
It has destroyed some of our tile cement, our main cement, our slate, and a lot of our books sometimes when we're at the downstairs. So it has really destroyed our place. So I want the authorities should come and ask about how the situation will be solved, because I see that this issue is not about a one-person issue. It's a very tough, and I learned it's coming from the top. It rains today. That it rains here. Yeah. It's just a little rain. No, it's like drizzling, not really rains, but it was. All this place was flooded.
A resident, Martin Luther King Agbeve, says a permanent solution is needed since the problem has become perennial.
Big gutter here. This is the big gutter connected to the West Mall here. Then descend to the main entrance, to the traffic lights. And then when it rains like this, the flood is very huge. We talked to the authorities. They said they will do something about it. We are waiting for them so many years. NDC come, nothing. MPP come, nothing. So people are dying. It costs traffic a lot. A lot. People are able to go to work, and the time also to, yeah, it's going. So the road too is spoiling the road, the erosion. So they have to do something.
Until city authorities fix the perennial flooding on the Tala section of the road at Weja, more productive hours will be lost to the congestion that is created anytime it rains. The road is already showing signs of deterioration as a result of the flooding. Maxwell Agbagba for JoyNews.
Well, let's stay on this because the National Disaster Management Organization, NATMO, is warning Ghanaians, especially those in the national capital, to be cautious as the rain setting due to issues of perennial flooding. Joining us now is George Ati, Communications Director for the National Disaster Management Organization. Dr. Joel Asiedu is a researcher, senior lecturer at the University of Cape Coast. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. George, not a good time. Of course, lots of residents within Weja, here in the national capital as well, are waiting on authorities to deal with the potential threats ahead of the downpours that we're expecting. Why are you not acting? George, you'd have to unmute so we can hear the point you're making.
Yeah, good evening to you and your viewers. Yes, I remember about 2 years ago almost, Joy and your sister station, Adum, we had a discussion around the Atawa area with the MP, the English chairman from MP Sylvester Tete. And, you know, this issue came up and, you know, he had said he was engaging the Ghana Highways and then the Ministry of Works and Housing. As the residents were saying, it's a major issue, a major construction issue that must be taken up by the Ministry of Works and Housing in partnership with the Ghana Highway Authority to be able to, one, scoop all the sand that are washed down to the roads, onto the roads. I remember the DC said he was using his budget to do that work. And you know, the auditors cautioned him not to do that again. And so that was a challenge. And so where Ghana Highways Authority was to do that. As to how it's not started, as I said, it's a major construction work and is above the National Disaster Management Organization. It is a major work at the Ministry of Works and Housing and Ghana Highway Authority.
Well, I'm asking the question because you've issued a statement cautioning residents to be wary of the flooding situation in the capital and beyond. So what's your expectation of the general public?
Yeah, we expect the general public, especially those living in such areas, flood-prone areas, to be careful, to be cautious in going about their duties, especially when they know during these times, these are major challenges that confront them, so that they wouldn't find themselves in precarious or dangerous situations where the waters can scoop some of them away. Again, the issues of flooding and electrocution, we caution them that make sure if you're in the flood-prone areas, switch off all your electrical gadgets, especially when you see the clouds forming and it's going to rain. And then we spoke about the need for all of us to pay heed to the weather warnings by the Ghana Meteorological Authority, so we will know what to do and not be overtaken by events.
And what are you doing in conjunction with the Meteo agency? Is it that you're predicting more rains, a reason for which you're putting out this caution?
Yes, they've told us. The Meteo, now we work in partnership with them. Any weather warning, inform us. And when the rains are about to set in, we have a collaborative engagement, and they tell us that they release something like a timetable. And the warning for about half a year. So we get an insight into how the rainfall pattern and situation is going to be. And that sets us to get engaging the public and especially those in flood-prone areas to be cautious of how they go about the activity. So we are working in partnership with the Ghana Meteo.
Right. Very finally, is there any platform you've created for residents here in Accra to reach out?
Can you come again?
Have you created a platform, an emergency response system for which people who are stranded could reach out?
It's the normal emergency line 112. That's what. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
The normal emergency line 112. Yes, 112 that we entreat people to call for emergency purposes. When it goes there and is a disaster issue, to be relayed to the National Disaster Management Organization. And we will dispatch our operations and search and rescue team to go and assist them.
All right, then. George A.C. joining us, Communications Director for the National Disaster Management Organization. Dr. Joel Asiedu is still with us. And Doc, the traits and the nature of the floods this time around appear to be very intense. What's your research pointing to on this?
This flooding issue, I did some work a few years back. In fact, that was the work for my PhD. And the main finding was that urbanization is creating a lot of impervious surfaces, okay? From roofs, from pavements and other places, even from bare surfaces, which have been compacted due to regular use and others. So from the research, what came out was that about 2/3 of the water that accumulates and eventually cause floods in our communities originates from the roofs of our buildings. Okay, and so if we could have a system in place, the policies should direct retainment of water at the plot level. It was going to take away 1/3 of this major problem. And of course, there are other interventions which must also go alongside it. Okay, so this was the main thing that came out of the research. And really, if you look at the trends over the years, you can see that there is a lot of logic in that, because there is a lot of truth, if I should say, in that, because you see this flooding situation continue to worsen, although government is making efforts to construct storm drains and others. The main thing is that we have a situation where, due to urbanization, we have removed all the places of, we call them places of attenuation, places where normally runoffs will infiltrate into the ground. We have removed all such places and we have concretized such places. So now, even in people's homes, apart from the roof, you see that they decide to tile the entire space outside the building. And so you have runoff generated from the roof and then from outside the building, running onto the street, into the gutters, which have not been made to accommodate so much rainfall. And so within a very short time, you have so much volume coming in and then overwhelming the system, and it ends up flooding the system. So the first thing that the research showed was that if you would target retainment at the plot level, which interestingly, our building code has also stipulated, except that it is not very specific. It's not targeted, actually. Okay, the building code says that after your development, the amount of runoff that you generate from your plot should not be more than what it was before you decided to put up the building or decided to put up whatever development that you were doing there. Okay, but of course, this is not being adhered to. But if you will target and say that this thing needs to be implemented wholesale at the plot level as one of the major tools to retain stormwater, to reduce the problem of flooding in our communities, then I think maybe people will take it more seriously. So this is what came out of the research.
How about city planning and issues of policy, and just to address this? Is that not crucial?
Okay. Yes, the issue of policy is very important because we need a policy that would ensure that people are doing this. And then you have laws coming in to enforce this thing, okay? And then the planning also has an aspect because just like the gentleman was saying, in the Jerusalem SEC area, you have a lot of runoff coming from the uphill area. And of course, combined with runoff from impervious surfaces, it ends up bringing down a lot of sediments to cause the obstruction as we have been witnessing on our roads. And so it is not only containment at the plot level. We should stop destroying the natural places of attenuation. Nature has provided natural sumps through which stormwater will infiltrate into the ground. And also we have vegetated areas which will also help to reduce the impact of the rainfall to allow for infiltration. And if we are taking off all these green areas, then of course the water will come and it will be running like we have been seeing, and no amount of storm drains constructed will address the problem. So it's going to be, it must be a wholesale solution. The first one, I believe, is at the plot level, and then these other green areas which must be retained, protected, and enhanced should also be added to the list.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking about policy, because that's crucial. Where should the policy target?
Yeah, the policy should target stormwater retainment at the plot level. In fact, from the Building Code 2018, it states that you should not allow more than 95% of the water that you generate from your plot to escape the plot. But this is not being implemented. So like I said earlier, you go to places where people have decided to tile every space outside their building. And so it means in effect that you have more than 95% of the water they are generating from the plot coming out and entering the public drains and causing problems. So this policy, this should be a policy that should be enforced, that you will retain not less than 95% of the water that you generate on your site on site. And this is one of the ways that can be done. In fact, there are places where the plots may not have enough space, but there are other places where the plots, the building, there are enough space to accommodate this. And this is what I suggest to most of my clients, that harvest rainwater on site. So you can either build an underground receptacle or you buy polytanks if you have the space. So you buy these polytanks or underground concrete structures to harvest the rainwater, store it. And this is not only going to help to reduce the amount of water that eventually comes out, but it's going to also provide water for you so that you are less reliant on the public potable water source. So that if there is a cut, if there is the taps are not flowing, you are not worried. In fact, in my house, that is what I do. I harvest about 90% of the rainfall from my site. And so I retain it in my receptacle, and that is what I use for day-to-day running of the house. Of course, it is due to pollution, high levels of pollution, one cannot drink from such source. So provision is made. For one, I buy water from outside to drink. But for washing, for cooking, and other uses at the domestic level, the water that is stored in the tank is good enough. And that is what we have been using.
Dr. Joel Asiedu, thank you. I'm grateful that you've been able to share this insight with us. You're watching the polls. We'll be back shortly. We'll equally be taking to Parliament as well as the votes will begin soon. Please stay with us. Indeed, you also have that opportunity to be a part of it. IB is here. Okay, Cues and lyrics. I feel like singing right now, but
President, so
yeah.
please stay here.
Okay.
You're good. You're
I know the way you mean me, you disqualify me, so you are all trying again.
I'm not a judge.
But tell us
I'm not a
about
judge.
this. What's inspiring Cues and lyrics?
Okay, so what actually inspired Cues and Lyrics is, you know that Joy Prime, our target audience, are heavily driven by the youth.
Right.
So we need to always keep them excited, keep them entertained. And also, if we have the platform, why not give it to very talented people to sell themselves to the world? And you know, multimedia, the platform is so credible. So if we're giving you the multimedia platform, yes, indeed, we're actually taking you far. So that is what actually inspired Cues and Lyrics, to entertain our audience in the house, and also to give the platform to sell talent that we have. We're always complaining that there are too many talents here, but we are not able to showcase them to the global
and to sell them out. And,
Yes.
and there's so much, in fact, that I've come across personally. But what's the criteria?
Okay.
How are you going to be selecting the people? Is it open to everyone?
It's open to everybody. It's open to everybody. But we are having the auditioning on the 31st, which is next week Friday, 31st of March, next week Friday. And just if you're creative, if you have some uniqueness, if you have excellence, if you have style, you have skill, all you need to do is just be there, present yourself.
Okay,
just be there.
Yeah, the venue.
Just be there. at the
Showcase
venue.
what you have.
Yes, showcase what you have, and then the judges are going to decide. First, we're going to cut off to about 36.
I was about asking that.
Yes,
the
we're going
numbers.
we're going to cut off to about 36. Okay. And then out of the 36, there will be a second audition, and then we'll shortlist it to 16. So the 16 talent. I don't call them contestants. Okay, right. Or I know.
Because even if you get there, there's some level of sports.
Once you get there, once you
16.
get there, 16 talents are going to be in this reality show. Now, a lot of people will ask, they're doing a lot of reality shows. What makes this one different? Well, you see, a lot of musicians are even in the music business and do not understand the business of the music. They do not understand the business of the show that we do. They even do not understand that there's a brand. I can keep a brand and then I can keep my music going. They don't understand the marketing of the music. They don't understand how to sell yourself to the world and sell your product. Well, that is what the uniqueness plays in here. The grooming. We give you a 360 grooming, not only for your vocal prowess or for you to find.
You need to understand what you're doing.
We are set to make you understand the whole music as a business, not as a fluke. Yeah. Not as a fluke or not as a turn to because something didn't work. No, you need to enter it as a business, as a whole business. And that is where the grooming comes in. With the 16, the reason why I don't call them contestants is their talent. With the 16, immediately you're part of the 16, the grooming starts from that onset. So even if you don't make it to the top, at least you go away with some knowledge to help you
on how to even build your career and to build.
We are building your charisma. We're building your how confident you're confident. Yeah. We are building building you to be able to sell yourself to the global front. And we are not looking at Ghana. We are looking at making you ready for the global market. Right. What's more, there are 3 companies, 2 record labels, and 1 distributing company.
Also, there's even a deal for grab.
They're already there. So if you're done, the winner, you have a 1-year record deal. Any of these 2 record labels were going to have you. Whatever you bring out, the distribution, company is there to distribute it across the globe. And that is what the excitement.
This sounds amazing and exciting.
Yeah, very,
except
very.
that I can change my profession.
No,
now.
don't.
Too late.
Don't.
The venue again and
the venue is at
details.
Tygon Studios at Abofun. Okay. So if you're coming from Fiesta Royal or from Accra Mall, immediately after the Achimota Forest, you keep looking to your left. It is the next the next right turn after the overhead. And look out for the Joy Prime flags because it will be mounted from
so it could lead you to the spot.
Lead you as a direction.
This is why we need Dr. Baumia's digital address system. Anyway.
Yes, you can't say it any further. Yeah, but it's really going to be exciting. Next week, Friday, at Tygon Studios, that is where the audition is going to happen. And it's really going to be very exciting.
IB doesn't want to do politics now. I would have talked about the digital address system. No. But
let me find myself in my confinement.
Right. Okay, so any message to those who want to be a part of it?
Yes. Another thing too is, even with the judges, we are having seasoned, knowledgeable people in the industry. People with over 3 decades. We have 3 judges. 2 are going to be permanent, and 1 is going to guest every week. Well, the one that is going to be coming is basically there for technicalities, how you are handling the microphone, how you're moving on stage, how you are able to hit the keys. But the 2, they are there because 1 is a record label owner, 1 is an artist manager, and he is still managing some of the top musicians Ghana has ever seen. The other one, well, I won't even mention the gender because I don't want to give you a clue. You'll come there and you see them. The other one has immense, experience in the media space. This is someone who, when some of the Sarkodie, the Saminis finish their album, they bring it to the person to listen to it and tell me which one you believe that is going to be a hit because of the experience they have. And these are the people who you're coming to meet. So already, even through the auditioning, you are coming to meet people who already have lots of experience in the business, in the field that you want to be there.
In fact, good luck to everyone going.
We are just not making musicians out of these talent. We are making you a 360 artist so that you understand the business, you understand the space that you're in to be able to excel. That is
anyone to celebrate companies and institutions supporting you and partnering you?
For now that we haven't started, we are keeping it under wraps. But immediately we are done with the audition. Everything is going to be blown up.
That big announcement is coming, so you need to take advantage of it. IB is leaving now. I'll join him soon, and then we'll go into the studios and do something.
Next week Friday, I'll expect you. I'll be expecting to see you there.
Anyway, I'm not trying that anytime soon, please.